So I am going to show you a video introduction to my podcast while we still work out the kinks and getting the podcast studio ready to go. So watch this video, subscribe, and get ready for what comes next. Hey everyone, this is your host Kirsten for Patriot for Truth. I've spent years going on other people's podcasts, and everyone was like, you got to start your own. So I guess every good podcast starts somewhere. This is not left versus right. This is not Democrat versus Republican. I'm making this podcast for truth, right? Because both parties have corruption, and I want to be able to give somebody a platform that wants to speak about anything they want to speak about. I think that this needs to be about the Constitution. It needs to be about due process, equal justice in this country, because right now we have a two-tiered system, accountability for our government, and remembering that we are all Americans before we're anything else. I know what it's like to be judged before people knew my actual story by the media. I know what it's like to lose everything. And I was prosecuted. I went to prison and later received a presidential pardon. That experience changed my life forever. I know what it's like to lose your friends, your family, to be doxxed, to, be red flagged at TSA. I went to prison for misdemeanors, something that is completely unheard of in this country. And especially to go to a women's medium, which essentially is a maximum with murderers and lifers for a simple trespassing charge. I've met people who made horrible choices. We're not going to say that every inmate is innocent or deserves a second chance. But the truth is that there are a lot of people who have been forgotten, overlooked, trapped in a system where too often people cared more about winning than what was right and about justice. So when I came home from prison, I had a choice. I could stay angry. I could stay silent. I could just disappear and go live my life, or I could use what I went through for a bigger purpose. So this is why I choose to fight, not fighting with violence, not with hate. I get a lot of hate for being a lesbian conservative, and, I'm still humble. I believe in God, whether you're a Christian and you don't agree with that. The difference is I'm not your typical lesbian. I'm not out here promoting a rainbow flag, indoctrinating our children, sexualizing our children. I do not go to gay pride. I think it's become a porn show. I think it's inappropriate. And I don't need any special funding or special rights. I have all of my rights. I have the same rights that straight people do. So, I've gotten a lot of hate from the alphabet mafia. I've gotten a lot of hate from even my own side of conservatives. Judging, which the number one thing that God tells you not to do is judge. So keep an open mind. Understand that I am an American patriot who stood up for this country, and I have been speaking for years, and I'm not going to give up no matter how much hate I get. So on this platform, we're going to talk about my fight for prison reform. We're going to talk about our veterans being abused and neglected by the VA system. We're going to talk about people who got arrested for speaking up for their children at a school board meeting. We have multiple states in this country with contaminated water, people being arrested for free speech. So when I say there are no limits here, there are no limits, but it is based on truth and allowing people to tell their stories. I'm not here to tell you how to think, but I am encouraging you to think for yourself and have an open mind. We'll talk about families that are destroyed by addiction, corruption, the broken prison systems that we have in this country. And then we can also celebrate the people who are out here making a difference. If you go to Patriot, the number 4, truth.com, You can find, forms to fill out to come on the show, to nominate somebody who you feel goes above and beyond for people. And you can find resources if you have a loved one in federal prison, or we can connect you. You'll find stuff about the Constitution. You'll find videos of podcasts that I have been a guest on. You know, like I said, I don't expect you to agree with everything I say, but healthy disagreement is part of what being free is. So I hope we can get back to having real conversations without immediately labeling people and assuming the worst. So if you feel ignored, if you've ever watched injustice happen and you believe that Americans can do better and you want to tell your story, I'm here to host you. So thank you for coming to Patriot for Truth. Please go to the website and go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. And let's do this together. God bless America.